Hello, everyone. Welcome to Decoding Downtowns, brought to you by Vistity. In this podcast, we dive deep with leaders from business improvement districts across the nation, revealing the strategies that are shaping the future of urban development and economic growth. Thanks for joining us. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Jamie Schwartzman. Today on Decoding Downtowns, we're going to New York City. We're going to be speaking with Daniel Bernstein. He's the Executive Director of the Columbus, Amsterdam Business Improvement District in New York City, New York. I would have to say the best city in the world. Daniel, how are you today? Welcome to the podcast.
I'm doing very well. How are you? And thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have you here. So tell us a little bit about Columbus, Amsterdam, where it is in the city, and, kind of what's your district all about?
Sure. Well, we're in the best city in the world, kind of like you said, New York City. We're what's known as the Bloomingdale neighborhood of the Upper West Side. So we run from West 96th Street to West 110th Street on both avenues, Columbus and Amsterdam Avenue.
Why do they call it the Bloomingdale?
I think it from what I understand, it goes back to the Lenape tribe. So a long, long time ago, our corporate name is actually Lenape Bloomingdale District Management Association. And that is so the Bloomingdale name derived from the Bloomingdale name, which is spelled a little differently. A lot of people get very confused that Bloomingdale is the retailer in the name. But we are the Bloomingdale neighborhood, which technically is from 96 to 110th from park to park. So from Central Park all the way to, Riverside Park.
And so what's happening in your district?
We have a lot of great things. We do a lot of open streets program where we close the streets to traffic and we open them up to the public. We have some outdoor movie nights coming up this summer. A whole bunch of different things going on. It's very, very exciting. Public art projects, tours in the neighborhood. We also have a history group where we actually teach history about the neighborhood with walks and talks. And we do a lot of textile recycling as well.
Oh, interesting. How's the restaurant scene?
Restaurant scene is huge in our bid. That is probably the biggest thing that we have. We have 150 different types, 150 restaurants that sit within our neighborhood. We have a close proximity to Columbia University, which is just north of us. We have a lot of foodies. We're on a lot of food podcasts. We're on a lot of food YouTube influencer pages. We are covered everywhere. There's so many different restaurants here, and it's a great place. You would never go starving in this neighborhood.
Well, tell us a little bit about the bid, how you guys structured and how you financed.
Sure. So BID stands for Business Improvement District. There are roughly, I believe, 76 bids throughout the city. We're the bid that covers the Columbus, Amsterdam neighborhood. We are funded through tax assessments on property owners. So the landlords pay a special bid tax on top of their real estate tax. That's collected by the city of New York. We have a contract with the New York City Department of Small Business Services for us to provide supplemental services. So we receive the money from the Department of Finance and put it back into the neighborhood. We have a board of directors that oversees everything. I serve at the leisure to the board.
And then are you guys, doing business development and economic development and safe and clean?
We focus on three main areas, basically: sanitation, marketing and promotion, and capital improvement projects.
So as executive director, what's the job like?
Job is crazy. It's wonderful. It's so much fun. You're running the day-to-day operations. You're motivating your employees. I'm speaking to my sanitation staff daily. I'm checking conditions within the bid. I'm dealing with business owners and property owners on a daily basis, and I'm dealing with my board of directors constantly as well.
How many employees do you have in your organization?
We're a relatively small bid. When I got there, we have a total of 10 employees. 7 of them were 8 of them when I got there were part-time. Now we have, I'd say, probably 3 to 4 of us are full-time. And the rest of the remaining 6 are all part of our sanitation group.
Got it. And the district's how many blocks?
District covers from 96 to 110th. So that is, 6, 10, 14 blocks. Well, 14 total blocks on both avenues. So 28 blocks, roughly about 48 block faces. That's each side of the street.
Got it. And there's a tremendous amount of density here too. I'm just trying to get a sense, and maybe you can share with the viewers, what kind of budget, does that derive in a place like New York City?
Okay. So we are a relatively smaller bid. Our budget for years was $350,000. That was our annual assessment that the property owners paid the tax on. That was recently increased last year. to 450,000. This year that we're in, it's 550,000, and next year it will go up to 650,000 and then cap it. We went for a 3-year $1,000 increase recently.
Give you a lot more wiggle room.
Yes, actually, and it's something I think that will help the bid grow tremendously and actually help us serve the businesses more.
Well, let's talk a little bit about you. How'd you get into this work?
I got very lucky. For years, I was a bartender. I met somebody who worked at a bid. She worked for the Madison Avenue bid. It was my friend's mother, actually, who got me a part-time job with the bid, and I was just doing security work for them. And I rose my way up to become the director of operations there, learned a lot about the bid, went to another bid in the Bronx, the Fordham Road bid, served as their deputy director for 18 years, and then came here. I've been with the Madison Avenue bid still as a consultant, so I've been with them for 30 years. I do this because I love New York City. Love it. I think it's the best city in the world. It's open 24 hours a day. There's so many great things you could do and so many wonderful neighborhoods that you can go out and to explore. And I love helping New Yorkers. Love it.
Right. Well, sounds like, really sort of a career that you've been able to work through and work
Yes.
up and move through the ranks.
Yeah, it's been very, very exciting. I didn't predict. I had no idea this would happen this way. When I first started, I had no idea what a bid was. Bids were relatively new. I started in 1996, I believe. And that bid was just formed. Madison Avenue bid, I believe, was formed in 96. So when I got there, they were relatively new. And I didn't know what a bid was. But when I learned, I was fascinated at how we help the businesses, the property owners, the visitors, the residents. It was just phenomenal. And then when another bid job came up, a brand new bid on Fordham Road at the time, 2005, I went there and wanted to put my knowledge to work for a different borough and a different neighborhood. And now I'm here doing great work down here as well. It's just wonderful.
Let's talk about the businesses and how you support the businesses and how you're supporting economic development in this fairly unique district.
So we do a lot of promotion. We actually have a restaurant association that's attached to the bid. It's called the Bloomingdale Restaurant Association. We use that to promote the restaurants within the bid. We do a lot of food tasting events that are geared at where all these restaurants can kind of show their fare to the public. We also do maps of the entire neighborhood to promote the neighborhood. We have a website which promotes the entire neighborhood. We have an open streets program, which I mentioned earlier, where the bid actually has a bunch of marketing and promotional things that happen on the streets that are promoting the businesses we have, the events that we promote, urban art projects that we host. We really support the businesses any way that we can and trying to drive more traffic into the neighborhood. So as I mentioned earlier, being a big food hub, we have access to a lot of, one thing we've done a lot of is promotion to foodie people, YouTube influencers, food podcasts. Columbia University and some of our neighboring colleges have a lot of small food groups that do food crawls. We do a lot of these things as well. It's just really, it gives access and promotion to the businesses. And so more people can learn about our neighborhood and all the different restaurants that we have to offer. Yeah.
What are the challenges that are going on that are unique to your district right now?
I'd say one of the biggest challenges we have that I noticed when I got here, we're very resident driven, which is a great thing. But we need more business involvement. I've been building that up by holding some food tasting events and getting a lot of our restaurants more involved. I also, one of the biggest things, one of the biggest issues we have too, I mentioned we do an open streets project where we close the streets off to traffic. That obviously creates a lot of headaches for people who drive within New York City. So some people are not a big fan of the Open Streets project. Most residents and people who walk the neighborhood are very happy and love open streets. That's a big issue that we're facing at this current point. We're also facing an issue with money. So, money is always difficult. Everything goes up and our main budget, our assessment usually stays the same. As I mentioned, we went for an increase recently, which I think will help us get out of that. So I see a white light at the end of the tunnel.
Let's talk a little bit about data and the data that you're looking at. And I want to get a sense from your perspective, what data you think is most important to people when they're looking to make a decision on and making an investment, opening a business, and making improvements?
I think one of the biggest things that I've noticed in all the neighborhoods I worked in is pedestrian counts. Pedestrian counts to me are a phenomenal tool for real estate investors, real estate, professionals, property management companies that are looking to invest in the neighborhood or looking to or looking to maybe make alterations to their current properties. All those data, all those numbers really help them sell the property, sell the building, sell people to the neighborhood, specifically retailers, because they can see the foot traffic that they're going to get at that particular location. The vehicular counts is another thing I think that very helps a lot. It shows how many people are driving throughout the neighborhood. I also push a lot of the data that the bid has. So what do we have in the bid? Restaurants, retailers. We have a healthy mix of a bunch of different retailers. Our main function is restaurants, but we want to be known as a one-stop neighborhood where you can get everything done within our neighborhood if you live in this neighborhood or if you shop or visit this neighborhood.
So how are you kind of, telling the story? We talked a little bit about how you're doing an annual report. So Daniel, how do you see using digital tools and dashboards to do a more effective job of telling the story of economic development and maybe even elevating what you're doing on your annual reports?
I think it's great. I mean, it gets the data out to everybody. That's the direction that the world is going in. We have to keep up with the times. Digital is a huge thing. We do a lot of digital advertising where we promote. We actually have a digital screen within our window. We actually have a storefront. Most bids have an office. We're lucky to have a storefront. Within our storefront window, we have a huge digital screen where we have ads. We promote a bunch of things about the district. We have weather. We have news. We have conditions that are going on within the district. Parking conditions, traffic conditions, a lot of different things where we're trying to let people know exactly what's happening in the neighborhood. People can also link to that screen through the web as well. We have a direct web page for them. So that's something big that we've been focusing on in terms of data about the neighborhood. We also show all the different events that we host on there. We show a lot of data, as I mentioned, a lot of numbers, how many restaurants we have, how many people are in the neighborhood, how many people live in the neighborhood, how many buildings we have, the history of the neighborhood, a lot of different things. Yeah.
So let's look ahead at the one short year that's to come, right? We're here, it's August 2024. Like let's, predict out 1 year. What's on the table right now? What are we working?
One thing we're working on is having a hyper local. So we have maps right now that are general and broad of New York City. Where our neighborhood kind of falls within them. I've noticed in the past in a lot of bids that I worked at, hyper-local map tends to really help people navigate the neighborhood and see what you have to offer and see why your neighborhood is unique. So I think that that's something big I want to see in the next year. I also want to see some more food tastings. We have 2 of them planned for the future, 2 more. We held one back in June, and we had over almost 200 people at that event. We had to turn people away. It was so successful. Based off the success of that, we want to build more off of that. I want to have some more restaurants participate in that project. I also see us really getting on more food podcasts and things like that to promote our restaurants in the neighborhood. And I want to build my relationship with Columbia University.
Great. So let's play make-believe for a second, and we're going to pretend that you've been handed a magic wand and you know how to use it to cast a spell to promote vitality of the Columbus, Amsterdam district. Daniel Bernstein, how would you use your magic wand?
I'd like to make everybody happy. It's very hard to do that, but a magic wand would obviously do that. A magic wand would solve a lot of our problems. A magic wand, one little twirl of the magic wand, and I would make our place a one-stop shop neighborhood where people from all over the world would be coming to our neighborhood to eat, shop, visit. We have so many different landmarks that are in the neighborhood and parks. I also see one thing. We have a green street just north of my office that I have put my sights to make a place. And in the next year, I want to see that happen. If I had a magic wand, that would happen. That would turn into a Dominican community site. It's actually known as the Minerva Bernardino Green Street. I'm not sure if you're familiar with who that is. People watching the podcast can Google her and find out a lot about her. She was one of only 4 women to sign the United Nations Charter. She was a old school Dominican feminist. We have a large Dominican population within our community. So this site it's really a travesty. Nobody seems to even know it's there. And I've been doing a big job trying to promote it. get the word out about it. I've had meetings with the local council member about it for capital funding. I want to see if I had a wand, I would make that a Dominican community site.
I see. Is it small parklet? Tell me a little bit more.
Yeah, so basically it's so small. It's not even a park. It's what's known as a green street. It's on the corner of 100 Cathedral Parkway. A little site. If anybody Googles it, they'll find it. Minerva Bernardino Green Street. It's been there for a long time. There is a sign there that tells you about who Minerva Bernardino is, but no picture and no further information. I held a Dominican festival outside that park with the Dominican Community Center that we have in the neighborhood and the local councilman, who happens to be Dominican. And he gave out a bunch of citations to a lot of people from the Dominican community. We had a big performance there, a live concert. It drew a lot of people. I think it got a lot of attention, a lot of press. And I want people to know what that site is.
So celebrate the culture, celebrate the history.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Hey, Dan, before we wrap up, tell us a little bit about how our listeners can keep an eye on your district and you in particular.
Sure. They can visit us on the web, cabid.nyc or columbusamsterdambid.org. We're on social media. cabidnyc is our tag everywhere. I really recommend our Facebook page. Has been booming and blowing up since I got here. That's something I did a big job of in the past. I really want to push social media. People can also find out a lot of information about us. As I mentioned, social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They can find me on LinkedIn. They can find the bid on LinkedIn as well. We're all over the web, really pushing it. But cabidnyc is our big hashtag. Yeah.
Right. And I told you the coincidence too, that my brother is living in your district and loves it. He says it's just the best place to be.
Tell them to stop by the office. I mean, our storefront, as I mentioned, is like a resource to the neighborhood. It's not like a bid office. It's literally like a resource center. Tell him to come by whenever he wants to. I love to meet him. I love to take him on a tour of the neighborhood. It's something that I do with everybody I meet.
Well, he loves to eat, so I'm sure he'll take you up on it.
Right.
Dan, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. This was awesome. Thank you.
Cool. And to our listeners, thanks again for joining us on Decoding Downtowns. A big shout out to Vistity for sponsoring the podcast. And until we meet up again, keep exploring and innovating in your district. Thank you for joining us today for Decoding Downtowns. If you've enjoyed our podcast, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's brought to you by Vistity, the leading geospatial visualization platform for data-driven decisions. Stay connected, stay informed, and let's continue to shape the future of our cities together. Until next time, I'm Jamie Schwartzman.